basically live on Facebook, YouTube, and whatnot. And then it's just about 1. So I will turn off this beep first of all that's coming in.
Yeah.
Then I will admit everyone here. Admit all.
Be our guest. Be our guest.
Guest.
Da, da, da,
I won't try to harmonize. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour this week. Good to see you all. It's lovely to have so many familiar faces at this point, too.
Wow, look at all these. Jeez.
Yeah, excellent.
It's amazing. We have a community. It's so comforting, right?
Yeah. And we also, once we have a community like this, we can take over the world, too. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, we can start sabotaging buildings and things.
We can have flash mobs and
yeah,
we could take down
we can take down the man.
Websites or something by anyways.
I don't know.
All right, I'm going to make an introduction here. So just a reminder, this event here is brought to you by Piano Tech Radio. Oh, sorry, this is Piano Tech Radio Hour, and this is brought to you by Piano Technicians Master Classes. We bring you the best instruction in piano technology from around the world live in your home. And you could find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. On today's program, our co-host is going to be featured as our guest. His name is Sir David Andersen, and he has not been knighted, but I like calling him that. He's the owner of David Andersen Pianos in Los Angeles, been a professional musician, recording artist, piano technician, consultant for nearly 4 decades. He's overseen the restoration and maintenance of hundreds of Steinway and Mason and Hamlin pianos during that time. Beginning in 1975, he apprenticed for 2.5 years under Jack Cofer in Atlanta, Georgia. During the 1980s, he studied at Steinway facilities, both in New York and London. And of course, he's our good friend that we all know very well, who loves to share wisdom and insights about piano technology. So, David, welcome as our guest today.
I'm stoked. I'm
cool.
Very happy to be here. I want to put it all down on a really elemental relationship. I am not a big high teacher in some ivory tower. I am not some dude with a $300 million an hour practice who never deigns to put his hands on any other. I'm nothing like that. I've lived an insanely full life in the piano business and experienced everything. I don't have a closet full of skeletons. I have a container load full of skeletons. I have a shipping container full of skeletons. Nice. I've made every single mistake you could make, and it didn't kill me, and it didn't destroy my business. I learned, and that's how we learn. We fail upward. We really do. Be bad first. You're never gonna ever get better if you're afraid to be bad.
I'm checking out that book, by the way, David.
Yeah.
That's so. David is sort of subtly quoting his title of his sister.
I'm shilling my sister's book. Yeah.
Yeah. Be bad first. Yeah, I checked it out. It's pretty cool.
My sister's a real successful business coach and strategist, and she wrote this little book, her latest of 4, I think, best-selling business books, and I think her best book by far. And it's only 135 or 140 pages, and it's called Be Bad First. And it's about the gripping, paralyzing fear a lot of us have when we do new stuff, because we think we're going to be bad at it. We think that other people are going to point at us behind our hands and laugh at us and think we're idiots, and we're going to think we're idiots. And it's just a whole, it's a it's a vital stew for toxicity and depression. So
too bad she has to reach a general audience with that. She could have named it "To Be Bad First to Be a Real Badass."
well, in one sense, but being bad first is the gateway to so much. I mean, you hear these famous, insanely successful inventors say, well, the whole key to this was my 3,000 failures. Then there was one success, right? And this is what life is. Life is just, you make a mistake and then you make another one, then you make another one, then you make another one. And if you can't admit that's kind of what life is like, then you're kind of living in a deluded world. That's actually what life is like. And so if you're continually afraid because you're going to look bad, you will not move fast nor far, my friend. So
At that point, I think of when I was studying jazz. You know, early on, it all seemed like these great jazz musicians were always great, and you know, there's a Charlie Parker movie where they have that scene where he goes on stage at a jam session and a
yeah,
drummer throws a cymbal at his head or something because he's not getting the
yeah,
changes right. I remember finding a Miles Davis recording where he takes a solo, an very, very early recording. It sounds horrible. I mean, it just sounds like any old high school trumpet player, you know, just pick a random
uh,
kid, you know, pick someone who doesn't even play jazz and ask him to take a solo. And just to reinforce that actually, oh, also Bill Evans as a piano player, he has a Marion McPartland piano jazz interview where he
where he,
talks about how
yeah,
he never felt like he was good at piano. He just felt like he worked really hard and kept practicing, you know, and it wasn't a natural thing. It was about repeated exposure. I love it when you share that, David. Can I jump into a question here that we got from the email beforehand?
absolutely.
Cool. So this question is from
Love it.
Bill. I'm trying to look for his last name. I can't find it right now. But he says, please talk more about putting a cushion of air under the strike point of hard hammers from the side. Where and how much?
Awesome. Great question. Now, I'm not going to put any visuals on because these are all, you know, improv type of questions, but I'm going to ask you to look at it, to see it in your mind, which is difficult for some of us. I know it's difficult for me, but let's try to do this. So you're looking in between the strings and you have a chopstick voicing tool. And the needle on that chopstick voicing tool is about, I'd say 15 millimeters long. It's kind of a long needle, and it's bent upwards at about 10 degrees, 10 or 12 degrees. So what you can do is stick that needle kind of flat directly under and uh, uh, it's
Laterally,
the
like
string
sideways?
that, well, the string cuts are vertical. They go away from you, right? From the player to the back of the piano. So what you're doing is you're putting that needle, that flattened out needle that's going in there at an angle. So it's in that string cut. Let's say it's the left hand string cut, about a millimeter under the string cut. And you just push that needle in. And what I do when it's a piano that I've never stuck a needle in before, I stick it in halfway to the halfway point of the string cut, which is usually somewhere between 3 and 6 millimeters. And then I take it back out, I put the action in, and I play the note and see if I've made any changes naturally. I played the note before and heard its attack, and now I'm hearing its attack again. If it did something, that's great. I do the other two um, string cuts halfway in, put the whole note in and see, and it's probably made a really attractive change. And what it does is it changes the fundamentals that are excited on a soft blow. Do you understand that? In other words, I'm masking some high partials when the hammer hits the string. Piano, double piano, triple piano. When it hits it real soft, or even up to mezzo, it's not going to be as pingy and bright and loud as it's going to be at higher volume. And that's what most players want. And that tube of air lasts for, depending on how the piano is played, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, sometimes days and days, or weeks and weeks. It depends on the amount of playing and the kind of playing. The other beautiful thing about it is that if you really don't like it, you can block the string, the 3-string unison with your thumb, and just pound the crap out of the string and the strike point of the hammer, and you can take most of the effect that you just made away. It's the equivalent of playing it, 15 or 20 hours hard, right? When you smack the piano 10 or 12 times, like triple forte kind of way, or as hard as you can. So it's reversible, and it's incredibly precise and sensible, and no harm, no foul. It doesn't cut up the string cuts. We're going to have a guest next week that's going to talk about the crucial nature of the string cuts as an artist. He's an incredible pianist. And so this method of strike point voicing doesn't mess up the string cuts at all. Doesn't degrade the string cuts with a whole bunch of little knife, needle hits or anything like that. Did I make myself clear?
Yeah, I
Whoever
thought that
asked
was
that
pretty
question?
great. Yeah, I'm getting some thumbs up. Cy Schuster gave a thumbs up. And just to go back to what you just said, just to clarify who are the guests coming up here. So next week, actually, we're having Del Fondrick. And
Okay.
he's going to do a radio hour, and then he's going to do a private master class as well.
Nice.
And we'll give sign up information for that. And then the week after that, it's going to be Frederick Chu,
Frederick Chu, the
excellent classical
classical player.
pianist
Yeah,
who has some knowledge of piano technology, and we'll have an interesting discussion with him, I'm sure.
that's awesome.
I got another question coming from the emails. You want to check that one out?
Sure. These are the kind of questions I want to answer. Deep into it, down into the weeds. How can we do that? How can we do that better? How can we do that in an elegant way, in a fun way, in a cool way? Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so this one comes from Jim. Again, I don't have his last name right now. Sorry. He says, I hope he talks about the puck sound of the jack hitting the spoon and how he dealt with it.
Yeah.
He also made a comment, by coincidence, I had the same problem in the Yamaha before the conference and did a number of things like needling, fabric softener. His fix is worth its weight in gold. I've used it many times. Before the question, he mentioned seeing you at a conference for your How to Make a Piano
Yeah.
Sing class,
Yep.
which we have in Piano Technicians Master Classes.
Yeah.
You know what? Let me go back and read some more. Or why don't you talk about that, and then I'll go back and read the rest after you talk about it.
All right.
I see there's some more. There's another question.
All right. So one thing that just really frustrates me and bothers me almost every time I walk up to a piano is that when you activate a key softly and then release it, the jack makes a pock sound as it returns to the spoon. Pock, like that. And it doesn't have, I've discovered after heartbreaking experiments, that it doesn't have anything to do with the jack, the felt usually, or any of the condition of the parts. It has to do with the strength of the repetition spring. If it's too strong, you're in trouble. The strength of the repetition spring, but mostly the distance that the regulation button spoon ends up from the spoon, because there's a sweet spot where that pock, which is just it's like a resonance, it goes away. It just does. It goes away. And usually that going away on good grand piano actions takes place when the jack is slightly ahead of where tradition tells you to put it, which is the back edge of the jack lined up with the middle of the rosewood, right? The back edge of the core.
And you're saying the point where you want it is when the back edge is lined up with the middle? Or
many times, the pock will go away. The final regulation is getting that pock sound out of there, because nobody likes that at low volume. Everybody hates it. They think it's machine noise. And when you take it away from them, they think you're a superhero, right? Because nobody knows what this is. Oh, it's the felt. I've heard 10 different excuses other than the fact that you have to regulate the button, the jack button, to closer to, the spoon, and then it won't make that noise. And I've said this for 10 years, but people don't believe me. So I encourage them to try it themselves. And it never gets to a point, except if the action isn't well made, where the pock won't go away until the jack cheats. It'll never get to that point. It'll never get more than an eighth or at the most a quarter turn ahead. Just some little ways, a millimeter or so.
David, can you see Cy Schuster over there?
Well, let
I
me
don't know if
put
you're
my
able to. He's holding up some actions there. You're unmuted, Cy. I don't know if you want to just demonstrate anything.
Go ahead and talk and demonstrate, Cy, so it can be up close.
Well, here's the jack and here's the spoon you're talking about.
Yep.
And here's the alignments. You're talking about aligning this a little bit forward.
A little bit forward. That's right. Based on the sound, not based on anything else.
Okay, but right? Up until it cheats, but not.
Well, if the action is well made and you're doing your job right, it won't ever get anywhere near the cheat point. It won't get within 3 full turns of the cheat point, right?
So the sound is not caused by the condition of the felt on the regulation button.
It's caused by the actual spring-loaded snap of the regulation button felt on the spoon.
Okay.
And certainly, when that distance gets smaller, the noise goes away. There's a sweet spot where the noise goes away.
And certainly if the rep spring's too strong too,
right? The spring could be too strong. That's exactly right. If you're feeling things through the ends of the keys, even a little bit, it's too strong. Just really know that, boys and girls. If you're feeling the spring through the ends of the keys, it's too strong. If you're not getting a sprightly rise, it's too weak. So there's a pretty fine, wouldn't you say, Chris Brown? There's a pretty fine little narrow parameter of where that spring is really functioning properly. Just a yes or no is okay. Chris says yes. Thank God. So is that clear now? You can be a superhero. I once saved a session and then got a $25,000 front end rebuild from solving that POC sound in a recording piano. So it's worth knowing about.
Thanks a lot, Cy, for holding that up.
Any questions? Thanks, Cy. Thanks a lot.
I had a follow-up. I was just going to say, it seems like the sort of what helps to get rid of the POC sound is a certain amount of friction on the knuckle of the jack. Is that what's kind of keeping it from pocking against the spoon? Or do you have a sense of why it has less of an impact?
Because that resonance frequency goes away. Because the jack is not hitting the spoon as hard as it was. So that
it's just a matter of, right, okay.
Completely a matter of that. I've done stuff with the felt, with everything. I've affected every single logistical point, and it's about the resonance. It's about the puck is a distance-based phenomenon.
Let's hit some of these questions in the chat. They're a little bit more clarifying. Let's see. Let's go to Alan Etter. David, why do you think it is that moving the jack further from the spoon makes the return sound quieter? Have you ever tried bending the spoon towards the player?
No, think about it. Think about what you're doing when you're adjusting the jack forward. When you're adjusting the jack forward, you're putting the button, the felt tip of the button, further back, closer to the spoon, right?
Just clarify what you mean by forward. Towards the player or away from the player is forward?
When you bring the jack distally toward the player, right? You're bringing the spoon button felt proximately away from the player.
There you go.
You see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jack goes forward, button and button felt goes backwards. So what you're doing is decreasing the distance between the spoon felt, the button felt, and the spoon, right? So pock, 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 boom, you're there.
It's kind of like, so it's not traveling as far, so it's not.
You check and make sure that it doesn't cheat, and you're good. It's nowhere near cheating. It's a teeny bit in front of that line. And I have never experienced it affecting like serious aftertouch touch weight considerations or anything like that. So
a little comment from Chris Brown said, seems like you might be turning fresh felt from turning the button. Any thoughts on that?
You know, I've tried everything. I've had pianos that had severe POCs that it turned out it was the felt, and then it was the distance and the strength of the repetition spring. So I can't say that it's never the felt, but in my practice experience, 90% of the time, it's a distance-based sound. And most pianos have it when you come up to them, if you really listen. Just activate the notes softly, like push through, ghost them, and you'll see what I mean. Tak, 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 like that. And if you don't think people can hear that on a on a piano level recording, you're nuts. It ruined a whole $40,000 session one day that I had to go then rectify at Warner Brothers. So this is worthy, kids.
Thanks for that. I see some more comments in the chat, but maybe I'll move on to a different topic.
No. If there's another, more statements
It's
about it.
let's see if well, somebody was saying that moving the jack forward. I mean, sorry, bending the spoon. Let me catch it where it is. Seems like you might be. No, there it is.
Alan Eder said something about, have you ever tried to bend the spoon forward?
Yeah, and somebody
No,
else,
I
sort of
never
seconded that.
I never have. It just seemed always more easy and elegant to just tweak the jack out there a little bit, that nobody would ever notice really, but it was there. It was a quarter turn up or an eighth of a turn up or even a half a turn up, but it's less than a millimeter. And it's a noiseless action.
Let's see what Jim Kelly said here. He said the problem he had was a Yamaha in an acoustically perfect auditorium where you can hear a pin drop. He tried everything, including needling the felt fabric softener. All worked, but disappeared quickly. After learning this, it was magic. The sound is amplified. The noise travels through the whip to the metal rails. It is on every piano.
Oh. That's it. It's a sound-based phenomenon, dude.
Okay, I'll move on to the next one.
Okay.
Very interesting. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, definitely something that I don't think is out there for everyone to at least experiment with or hear about. So thank you for sharing it. Going back to what Jim was saying before I hit you with that first question, I'll just read the whole message because he mentioned a few things as a question earlier. Without being too effusive, David is an amazing individual and top-tier technician. I first met him in a class he taught in Norfolk, VA that was packed tight and almost didn't get in. Hope today he discusses how to get into the moment and the inner game. I believe the class was how to make your piano sing. And then he has a little bit more, but maybe that's a good place to cut into the inner game, which I think you have a lot to share about.
Yeah, it's the inner game. What you call the inner game is really kind of the focus of my life. I've found that everything is better when you can stay in the present moment, when you can stay out of mostly negative, forecasting for yourself and your situation. When you can stay here, when you can feel your breath or hear some music or tune a piano or regulate a piano or, put on a set of keys or whatever it is, you can focus your attention in the present moment. So let's talk about the inner game. It's a revolutionary technique that my friend Tim Galway kind of put a name on and put a protocol on 40 years ago, 40 or 5 years ago almost, called the inner game of tennis. And just real quickly, he was a tennis pro and a tennis teacher at a pretty high-end Ivy League school. And he was a tennis player at a pretty high-end Ivy League school too. And he would always kind of defeat himself at the end by getting angry and by just not being in the flow at all, and kind of like talking his way through it. And so when he became an instructor, he tried to figure out, how can we take the player's attention off their self-critique and put it on something in the here and now? And so he thought, what about the seams of the ball? And it was like, you know, the windows opened up, the curtains opened up, and the sunlight came pouring through. And so he would take films of these championship college tennis players playing in competition and defeating themselves by foot faulting and getting angry and just not being able to control their attention at all. And then Galway would give them the instruction, just put your attention on the seams of the ball, nothing else. Okay? They would go, okay. And then he would film them doing that. And it was a completely different experience. The players looked like leopards and jaguars. They allowed their body to do it, so they played great because their body knows how to play. It's their own self-critique that destroys their ability to focus. Is that clear? So self one is, let's say, watching the seams of the ball. Or we could say it's listening to the note and entering the world of the note when you're tuning, right? Something that fills your awareness in the present moment. And it means giving yourself to whatever that experience is and not reserving part of yourself to go, yeah, well, see, you can't do this anyway. And that, your attention is still going to this dialogue, which is abusing you, basically. You can't do this. See, it's taking you forever to do this, and blah, blah, blah. And besides, you're never going to be as good as whoever, and blah, 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 and woof, woof, woof. And besides, you're a loser. And you've never really been successful at anything, and blah, blah. Whatever your dialogue of self-defeat is, everybody's got one. Come on, let's be honest. And you just keep running it. And it doesn't work. It slows you down. If you can just enter the world of the note, put your attention on the seams of the ball, and let your body do what it's done 500 times, 1,000 times, 3,000 times, 20,000 times, it's a master. You've mastered this. It's a matter of believing it. And that sounds weird, but it's not weird. Your body's a hundreds of trillions of dollar unit. Your body is matchless, brilliant. It knows how to do this work. So the inner game just means putting your attention on something constant and attractive in the present moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a bunch of sense. There's a couple of things I would follow up with. One is, this is kind of the essence of why athletes or competitive sports are, well, it's going to be different than what you think I'm going to say. They can psych each other out, right? Like, why one would psych the other out is by putting a voice in their head, right? Is you're saying something, and it's the voices in the head that are the distraction. They're a talented person, they're able to compete, they're able to win.
Yep.
But what's going to make it difficult for them is if there's a voice going on in their head.
And the voice says something like, you've never been anything really except a loser. Your dad said that. You're saying that.
Right.
Your whole script that you've run to yourself endless thousands of times, and you tend to believe it. That's why your attention goes there. Huh? Maybe this is true. Maybe this really is true. What? That you're a loser? And you got a chip missing? I don't think so. That's pretty toxic, kids. So
There's some,
go ahead.
I was gonna say there's some interesting research, I think, related to this, although they don't have a clear mechanism. But there's something called stereotype threat. Have you ever heard of the stereotype threat?
No.
So it's a proven effect. And what they do is they'll have a test that they give to two different groups. One group may be asked to check a box to say their gender before they take a math test. And that's it. It's literally like, fill out your name, your gender, whatever. And females tend to do worse on that exam just because they check the box that says they're a female, because they've got some voices going on in their head that girls are bad at math. And it's not that it's not that they're bad at math. It's that the voices now start being activated because they've been reminded that they may, that they could have this handicap.
It's like brainwashing or catastrophizing.
And it happens with race too. And if you check a race box, and you're considered a minority, oftentimes you do worse on an exam when you have to become more aware of that before taking it. And there's another study on something they call the Obama effect. And that is when it was shortly after Obama got elected, and kind of it could instill confidence in people who identified with him racially, the effect disappeared for those people, because there was something about the level of and this is just the explanation, right? It has been proven, and this is why, just to say this as a scientist, it has been proven this is why, but this is a speculation as to why this happens, because, well, they're not worried about that anymore. They're believing that they, have the equal capacity as anybody else. So checking that box maybe even makes them feel more confident, right? Because they've seen an example, someone, do something that they think is impressive. So it's a real thing, and there's even scientific research around it that's pretty convincing. If you have anything else you want to say on it, go ahead. I can go to the next topic.
I just wanted to make sure before the end of the show to talk about making aftertouch, because that's really important and we don't talk about it enough.
That came up in the chat, so yeah, I would say go for it.
Okay.
Let me see here what they specifically said. I don't have the specific comment there of what they said. Let me go back to the email I have here. We'll hit that, and then I'll look for the specific comment about aftertouch, so you have something to bounce off of.
I'm just gonna talk about it now, so I don't.
Yeah, go for it.
Run out of room.
Go for it.
Making, like, I have the great fortune to roll up, well, at least until quarantine time, to roll up on, and still now, every once in a while, and more, on really good new pianos. Grotrians, Steingravers, Estonias, top of the line Baldwins, the kind that are like 50 grand for this 7-foot piano. Some good pianos, real good pianos. Some fairly well-built restored Steinways. We prepare quite a few performance pianos for this dealer, successful dealer in Los Angeles. And the real mark of a tier 1 piano is having the sharp and the black key aftertouch the same. Very rare on any piano, even a $120,000, 6.5-foot piano. Very rare. So how do you get it even? It's tough. It's tough, but you're working in a house, you're working all day or for a couple of days, and you're part of the regulation is to get the key travel and the aftertouch just dialed in. So it's like so that it feels like a tier 1 piano. Like, so let me tell you, pretty much everybody that I know, with rare exceptions, all the artists I know, like a crisp, small, absolutely unmistakable aftertouch, right? They don't like any sloppiness about it or like that. They want it crisp. They want it crisp. They don't necessarily want it hard, but they want that feeling to be there on every single note and the same on every single note. Why do they want it the same? Because many, 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 many players play that aftertouch at P, double P, triple P, soft levels. They play around with that aftertouch. And if you're not ensuring it for them, that it's the same from note to note and the same touch feeling from note to note, then you're not serving them. So how do you do that? Quickly, and in a Reader's Digest version, what you do is you set the key travel, right, to a little bit more than 10, like 10.2, 10.3. Not enough to tell the difference, 10.2 and 10.3, teeny bit. So you set the key travel, and you pretty much keep that key travel at a sacred distance. It's gotta be above 10. And most tier 1 manufacturers, and that would be Hamburg Steinway, Zauter, Bosendorfer, Steingraber, Grotrian, make their key travel at somewhere between 10.1 and 10.3. That's where they all do it. So that's where I do it. And that's where the original Hamburg template says to do it, a little bit more than 10. So if you can make obviously the naturals at 10.3, and then make sure that the whole action is well regulated, so that then the aftertouch can be regulated both by blow distance and punchings under the front rail. So what you don't want to do is obscure that 10 millimeter distance. You never want to come under 10, and that's why you have some extra, and why you can subtly manipulate the key travel. You can go from 10.3 to 10.2 or 10.3 to 10.1. And then the other way to make sure that the feeling on each note is the same is to dial in that click, that satisfying kind of bump, is with the blow distance. And if you're lucky and good, you can get the illusion of an absolutely straight hammer line but still have some subtle up and downs to reflect the fact that you've customized every single one of those aftertouch distances to feel like the next one. Does that make sense? Are people like confused now, or do you understand what I'm saying?
Anybody got any comments? I think I'm getting it. I'm seeing some nods. Perfect. Bruce Gibson said.
So you can make super subtle adjustments in both the key travel with the front rail punchings, very thin ones, green ones, and subtle, and I'm talking about subtle changes, millimeter, half a millimeter changes in the blow distance. You can make a fairly striking positive change in the feeling of the aftertouch. And if you ever want to get your regulation close to where a tier 1 piano is, you're going to have to ultimately listen to what I'm saying, because this is how to do it on a piano that's out in the field. You get the aftertouch all set. Take a lot of time to get that 10.2, 10.3 aftertouch set on the naturals, right? Then fill in the sharps to the proper feeling aftertouch, and then match the naturals with that. You're matching the feeling of the aftertouch, which is a crisp, clear, clean click. Click, like that. Go up to a Hamburg Steinway that's just been prepared for a concert, and man, they'll be clicking. They'll be so clean. Same thing with a Steingraber or any like real tier 1 piano, Shigeru Kawai, Yamaha CFX, if they're prepared properly. You know, these are amazing pianos that come great from the factory, and it's your job and your challenge to be able to make their aftertouches feel just like a factory. And if there's any other questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, a couple things came in here. Victoria Gould said, in your system, would the actual measurement of aftertouch as per lost punching method be the same for both sharps and naturals?
I don't even measure the aftertouch distance. A lot of people measure and have coins on sticks and all kinds of measuring devices. For me, it's a feel thing. You know, Leroy Edwards just basically proved to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's a feel thing. It's not a measure thing. It's when it feels like, that's really good, and it's the same from note to note, that's what's good. Now, some people, some men and women, can get that much closer with some kind of a feeling device, like a feeler gauge or something like that. For me, it's better just that whatever the aftertouch is, whatever, you know, little fractions of a millimeter it is, whatever it is. I want to feel it, and I know what it feels like. So
next thing, we're about 10 minutes out here, so we got some time still. We got some more questions. I'll just
listen. I'm gonna ask you, my beloved community, now. If there's anything that's burning that you want to ask, now's the time. Don't hold back. Go ahead, Ethan.
Sounds good. I'll also just quickly note that we'll add links as we usually do in about 5 minutes for giving your feedback and how to sign up for other things as well. But especially want to let everybody know so that you get this. After today's event, we're going to try something new. A handful of you tried it on a previous day. We have a brand new technology, a brand new platform where you can sign in, and we can kind of have a little after party after this. And why I say it's like an after party is it's like Zoom, and that you can video chat, but there's a little virtual landscape, and you can walk around and you can say, oh, you know what, I want to talk to these people. We'll get in a little group and we'll talk about this or that. So it's not where everybody needs to talk over each other, and you can kind of mix and mingle and chat as you like. So we'll have that. I'll give a demo real quick before the end and a link so you could join us for that. But we'll hop right back into the questions for now. What we have here is, what role from Jim Kelly is played with front felts? How about crescendo punchings? And is there a range for blow distance? And I don't even know what's meant by crescendo punching. So
crescendo punchings are those punchings that are made by Andre Urubik that were bigger on one side than the other. They were literally like a conical punchings, and they were harder felt. So my experience with crescendo punchings is, on some pianos, they work perfectly. They make that aftertouch exactly like you want it. It's very easy. It's wonderful. On other pianos, they're too hard. They actually make a noise. They're actually they actually make noise. They're too hard. The green, Hamburg style felt front rail punchings is better for those pianos. And you gotta listen to your ears. You gotta feel through your fingers. What feels best? Ooh, this is too hard. This feels like smacky. Bang, like it's smacking my finger. That's not good. Then the crescendo punching would be too hard. And like the stiffest green punching would be better. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And is that answering the other part of the question? What role is played with front felts?
Yeah. Well, and what is key travel? Well, key travel is what all the makers that charge over 6 figures for a piano say it is, as far as I'm concerned. Key travel is what Shigeru Kawai and Yamaha CFX and Steingraber and Hamburg Steinway and Zauter and Bosendorfer and Beckstein and Blutner say that key travel is. They say key travel is 10.2, 10.3. Check it out. Check it out. That's what those pianos say to me when I roll up on them. That's what they've said to me for decades. That's why I've taught this for decades. That's the hip, the part of what I call the Hamburg template is a 10.2 millimeter key travel. And it's really important that players just get used to it. And so a 10.2 millimeter or something close to it with a nice, crisp, positive, unmistakable, aftertouch that's a lot about what a modern, good setup grand piano action is all about.
Excellent. Let's see here. We didn't have so many burning questions, so I will go on to the next comment here, and that is, Sai was responding to Susan, and Susan said, when fudging to assure uniform feeling,
yep,
it is perhaps better to fudge 2 factors instead of just one. That way, each change can be half more subtle.
100%. Your determination on how it feels, because the feeling is the really important thing here. the feeling of that notch, of that aftertouch. That's the important thing. To trust your bodies. Oh yeah, that's a sprightly little, awesome little, you know. That's what you want to feel. As close to that ideal as you can. Some pianos you can't get like on top of that ideal, but you can get close. That's what you want to get.
Any comments on size follow-up to Susan's comment? He said he was wondering which was more noticeable to the pianos, variation in dip or blow distance.
I don't think it's one or the other. I think you can do both. I think you could put a super thin punching on the front rail and eke the blow distance up a teeny bit to introduce a little bit of aftertouch. And I think that would be awesome. It's as long as all the aftertouches, all the notches feel the same. That's the end game. That's the win.
By the way, Victoria Gould is coming out and telling us that he is David Skolnick. That is David's wife.
Oh wow!
Let people know when he's.
David changed. I have to change my whole frame of reference, pal.
Okay, let's see here. I'll also just, as I'm thinking about it, seeing a couple of women that are in attendance noted that they had no awareness that there was a prejudice against females for math skills, and so they completely killed it at math and took
That's awesome.
rounds of calculus classes in college and whatnot. So I thought that was great.
Well, that's being a warrior for you.
And I'll say, so the links are here in the chat. For the feedback. If you guys want to give feedback for today, that'd be great. There's a link to sign up for $79 a month for the Craftsman subscription. And with that, you can view Del Fondrick's private masterclass next week. And you can also go back and view David Andersen's How to Make a Piano Sing, which was mentioned earlier today. And I highly recommend. That was one of our best lectures. And Piano Tech Radio Hour event with Del Fandrick. That's free, so you can sign up for that for next week. And then the final link there is for this new social experience for Piano Tech. So if you click this link, it says topia.io/Piano Tech. I'll repost it. You can go ahead and click that now, and you can join us for this sort of after party type of thing. And we'll test it out. I think it should be kind of fun.
Beloved community, I won't be there this week. I have another commitment right after this, but I'll be there next week.
Awesome.
And
very
listen,
cool.
Thank you so much for showing up today. This was big fun, huge fun. I got to just rant, and I love that. Thank you very much.
Nice. Yeah. We're getting some smiles and some claps, and we really appreciate you, David. Thank you for taking the time to share your experience and your expertise. And actually, I found it interesting to have the verbal only explanations of some of these things. And actually, sometimes I think some of it helped to understand a little better, to be able to visualize it while listening to you talk through it. So that was an interesting experience. And I think you did a pretty excellent job of that. And it just reminded me how, to be able, it is one of those things, only certain people's minds can manipulate objects in 3 dimensions. And I think that's probably something that piano technicians need a special skill in, because we have to imagine how to fix these issues and see whippings and things in our heads, and, move jack spoons and buttons and things like that.
It was the thing I was worst at for most of my career.
Interesting.
I really had that. My spatial intelligence was 2 or 3 points above a fern when I first began. I really had to develop it. So I'm proud of that. I have, actually.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a testament. Yeah, you've got great skills with that right now. Susan Klein says, as a final thought here, mentally manipulating in 3 dimensions is estrogen related. Women are bad at it during certain parts of their cycles. That's fascinating.
Wow. That's awesome.
All right. Well, I want to give a shout out to the people helping us behind the scenes really quickly,
Yes.
especially Pooja, who's taken on a lot of responsibility, helping out, sending those links to you, helping put the emails together, and doing a lot of admin stuff on the back end. And yeah, we've got a lot of help with this project, so we appreciate every minute, every quantum of energy anyone's putting into this, and
That's right.
especially thank you again, David. So I'll sign off, and I got to thank you, David and team. Thank you very much for that from David Boyce. And yeah, guys, jump on that link. And if you want to mingle a little bit, we can give it a shot. And that's open forever, you know, well, not forever, but longer time. So you can mingle as long as you want, but at least we'll know we'll all be jumping over there right now so you can hang out with people.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys. See you next week.
We'll sign off. Check you later.